Several minutes of commercial-free football starts now. Here are the Purple Mortgage Guys.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Purple Mortgage Guys. Guys, we've been a little rusty here in the off season, but we're getting into the swing of things here as the Vikings look to kind of finalize their 53-man roster after the game this weekend against the Cardinals. Lots to talk about. Goose, Tanner, we'll jump right into it here. But if you're just stumbling across us for the first time, three mortgage guys like doing home loans during the week, talking a little Vikings football in the fall and on the weekends. So if we can help you out with a home loan, let us know. But otherwise, we'll jump right into some purple talk here. So, guys, talk of the day has been Trey Lance, San Francisco. Sounds like they are ready to move on, call it quits, trade him, maybe possibly release. Former third pick overall, native Marshall, Minnesota, played up at NDSU, so local guy. I guess the question is, do you guys have any interest there? Tanner, I'm going to start with you. Trey Lance, any interest in giving him a look? What would you say to that, and what would be kind of the ceiling of what you'd be willing to give up?
Gosh, what a massive disappointment, right? Third overall pick in 2021. I think all the traits are there for him to still be a successful quarterback in this league, but obviously the injuries caught up with him and something doesn't seem to be sticking in camp. I think for the Vikings specifically, I think I would probably pass on that. Based off of our current situation, it makes no sense to carry four quarterbacks heading into the season. There's not a single team in the league, I think, that would do that, but you have Kirk Cousins. Nick Mullins is a solid backup, and it just doesn't make sense to draft a guy like Jaren Hall in the middle rounds of the draft and cut ties with him or force him to be a practice squad guy. There's no way he'd make it. He'd get snatched up. So I don't think that's a fit here.
Goose,
needs to go to
Sam Darnold
Yeah.
beat out Trey Lance. Just remember that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Goose, are you giving him a shot? Are you saying thanks but no thanks? And if so, I guess what are your thoughts there? What would you potentially give up for something like Trey Lance?
Yeah, I would I would say no. The only way is with little to no risk, and the hard part is at this time of the season you don't have long to get an evaluation on him before you have to make a decision on QB3 and what you're going to do. I mean, maybe like 6th, 7th round pick flyer, or if he gets released for, bring him in, take a look at a non-guaranteed contract, just because that there's potential there with where he was drafted. But I think the thing with Jaren Hall that seems like a good kid, seems like he could make it. It's a short quarterback who was old, and it's not like I've got a ton of eggs in the Jaren Hall basket. And so if you can get Trey Lance for like the cheapest discount price and you want to give him a look behind Nick Mullins as a developmental guy, fine. But I just don't know how desperate the 49ers get when you give up that much capital and you want to get something back, or maybe you do just bury him on your roster.
There is no scenario where he would be QB2 in front of Nick Mullins. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Tanner,
in my eyes.
Yeah, not on this roster. Nick's played, I think, pretty well given the circumstances that he's been dealt here in the preseason. And I just don't think, there's just no way.
I feel like if you're rolling the dice and you truly are rolling the dice, you're probably at that point you're getting rid of Mullins, right? Or would Hall be the odd man out?
Yeah, I would say it would be Nick Mullins because I don't know why you would draft quarterbacks. I mean, there aren't very many in the draft, so if you're going to take a shot on one, I think you're committed to him for at least the near future. And, you brought Nick Mullins back on a 1-year deal, and I would think that, you would just have to cut ties with the vet.
Safe to say both like, okay, let's thanks but no thanks on Nick Mullins.
Like for him to come in here at this point, like the Vikings would have to be confident that he would be Kirk's replacement here within the next year or two. Like they would have to be very confident in that.
I feel like Kwesi likes taking stabs on these guys that were drafted high and maybe didn't work out. So that feels like that fits the mold a little bit. But
Yeah.
be
I just
interested
can't
to
see you getting rid of Mullins, even though Kirk's been so durable. If you go into a season with Kirk, Trey Lance, and Jaron Hall, like
and Kirk gets hurt and you're sitting at 10-4 or something. Oh man,
big trouble.
Big trouble. Yeah. So I feel like you guys are saying he doesn't have it. He was a kind of a bust then at that point.
Yeah, it's tricky. It
And
seems
can't
like
get anything out of him. Then
it seems like if you can make it. Yeah, it seems like you could make Shanahan could make something out of anyone, but he also has a really weird taste in quarterbacks. Love Matt Ryan. Rumors that he loves Kirk. Brock Purdy seems like he's getting the best out of him. So maybe there's just a weird mismatch of talent and coach, but it's concerning for sure.
All right, we'll go to the news of a couple days ago. So Jonathan Taylor, same concept, I guess, a little bit, but you're beginning to give up a lot more draft capital and have to pay him on top of that. So it's not just signing a big free agent. You're gonna get hit on both sides. Goose, thoughts there?
Obviously, an interesting prospect because of the upside of Jonathan Taylor. Realistically, though, what you would not only have to give up in draft capital, but also future in signing him, with him being unhappy, is just so unrealistic to me, especially with Vikings fans currently dealing with okay, the draft pick was worth it to go get Hawkinson. And I don't know that anyone would argue against that, but now you see maybe a potential hold-in situation. Are we going to be able to extend him? If we don't, was it worth it? And I think that just gets way worse with a guy like Jonathan Taylor when you need to re-sign him and O'Neal and Darisaw and JJ and find out who your quarterback's going to be. It's just, to me, there's absolutely no way to make that work, especially when you let a guy like Delvin walk due to contract and the smart move of let's move away from paying the running back position a bunch of money.
I co-sign that opinion. Tanner, do you agree? Because I know you're on board potentially with the Jonathan Taylor.
I mean, he's arguably a top 5 back in the league. I mean, there's a lot of talent there. I know there's a lot of tread on the tires as well. He's had some durability concerns, but yeah, it would have to make sense from a cost standpoint. His party or his agent, or I guess the Jonathan Taylor party in general, hasn't released any information on what I guess he's looking for in a new contract. But you would like to think that he's probably wanting top running back dollar, which obviously is less than it has been previously in the league. You're probably looking closer to $12 million, I think, for top back dollar at this point. But I mean, Goose already hit the nail on the head with Dalvin. It doesn't make sense to let a guy like him walk that wanted to get paid and then bring a guy in like Jonathan Taylor, who's maybe somewhat equal caliber type of player, probably a little bit better, but yeah, with the extensions and stuff that we got coming up here with TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But if they were to pull the trigger on a guy like Jonathan Taylor, I think that would be all our eggs are in the basket. We're in this for this year specifically, and we think that this team can win a Super Bowl this year. So
it sounds like one of my fantasy football auction drafts where I just blow all the salary cap on 3 guys, because you'd have TJ Hawkinson who wants to reset the tight end market. You've got JJ who's we're gonna have to print money for, and then you'd have one of the highest paid running backs, which sounds like you'd have a lot of holes elsewhere. So we'll see how it plays out. Kind of a good segue, because if you would pay Jonathan Taylor, you would be even more concerned about a few other areas of need and maybe some positional groups that don't have a lot of depth. Tanner, I'm going to start with Goose actually on this one, so hopefully he doesn't steal your thunder. But Goose, biggest area of concern heading into the season, where is that position group for you? What are you concerned with?
It should be easy.
Yeah, I think
I'm go first.
I think I gotta stick with the corner room, which maybe isn't what you were thinking, but I just think the combination of youth and durability in that room is terrifying. I saw, I think it was Metellus, like looked like he had a headshot on a Caleb in one of the Tennessee joint practices. And the second I saw it was like, great. Like Caleb has 1 or 2 hits left in the head. He was currently CB2. I've at least seen a couple highlights from Andrew Booth, but he doesn't seem like a starting corner in the NFL at this point. And so not only is the talent a huge question mark, but it doesn't seem like we can get anyone to stay healthy in that room outside of Byron. So just depth and talent concern big time in the corner room.
Tanner, is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a smart Vikings fan, I think anybody would probably say corner. I'm baffled, actually. I guess that I know we brought a few guys in, like Ronald Darby, to work out some veterans. Obviously, never ended up signing anybody, but our number one guy is Byron Murphy, who is a great player, and he's had a solid camp, heard a lot of great things, but even he has had some durability concerns throughout his short NFL career so far. And yeah, Caleb Evans is literally a walking hospital bed. It feels like always hurt all the time. And then the rest of the corner room, I mean, it's so unproven. Like Jawan Williams is our other vet guy, but even he has just been bounced around since coming into the league with playing time, and had an up and down preseason as well. I thought he looked really good in Seattle, and then I thought he looked less than spectacular, I guess, against who did we just play?
Tennessee.
Tennessee, sorry. And then, Mekhi Blackman's a rookie, and Andrew Booth has looked horrible in pass coverage and in the run game, which is super sad because I was so high on him coming out of school. So I would love to see, and I just can't see a scenario where they don't, but pick up maybe a veteran guy here next week after roster cuts are made next Tuesday. It's just super concerning to me, and I think that that's one spot on a roster in the league, not even necessarily with the Vikings, but any NFL team. Like, you have to have depth at that position. It's just not a spot that you can afford to have any flaws at. So yeah. I'm super concerned about that going forward.
If Byron's great, it doesn't matter if there's 2 corners who can't cover their guys. That's the hard part about the cornerback position, is you can have one dog, and if there's 1 or 2 corners that can't keep their guy covered, I feel like we've maybe talked about that on a past episode where, like, we can just think of the times where Aaron Rodgers has just picked apart one corner every play, and it's just brutal to watch.
Well, we don't have to worry about Aaron Rodgers this year.
Yeah, specifically, so. No.
I think a second area would probably be the interior offensive line, which feels like we could just check that box every year for being a concern. But I could see that going off the rails a little bit too if the guard play is not quite there. So
a semi-sneaky one on the other side is interior D-line, which is going to go in turn with the secondary. I think you've got some solid veterans, but like almost zero pass rush. And if you're relying only on Daniil and Davenport to have a good season and get to the quarterback before our corners fall apart, that's one thing that also really scares me. Between Harrison Phillips, Dean Lowry, and Tonga, like, those aren't guys that are getting after the quarterback at a high tick by any means.
Yeah. To Tanner's point, I think you're going to see probably a few signings or maybe even a trade of some sort to try to button that up, because feels like you can't go into the season that thin to start because injuries are inevitable. It happens to every team. You can't say you didn't see that coming necessarily. So, guys, what about this weekend Cardinals game? Haven't been following it. Do we expect any of the starters to play, or is this like pack it in, playing for the 53-man roster at this point?
Yeah, the last preseason game is miserably hard to watch, it seems like. I mean, I like preseason to kind of make my own evaluation of which players I think should make the squad, but I feel like I've kind of done my due diligence on that through the first 2 games, and the third game is basically for those guys in those depth spots who, like Nick Muse, I guess I would use as an example, is going to be a guy to watch that's kind of fighting for a roster spot right now. Like he's had really like a solid first 2 games. There's been a lot of talk that he's probably not going to make the 53 because we're pretty deep already at tight end. So I could see him getting snooped up on another team here. So I'll just use him as an example. But wide receiver, I don't really feel like there's been a clear-cut guy behind Addison and KJ Osborne, obviously. Jalen Rager's had a pretty solid training camp and preseason, but so is Brandon Powell. So it doesn't make sense to keep both of those guys. I think they're both punt returners as well. And I think it's going to be one or the other. So probably going to be watching those guys too, or pretty closely as well on Saturday.
It'll be interesting how that plays out. Goose, what are you looking for on Saturday?
It's getting tough.
Friday. Is it Friday or Saturday?
Gosh.
Saturday at noon.
Saturday at noon. Okay. Goose, what are you looking for?
It's getting tough. I used to be really into the preseason, and the KOC era of preseason has been tough.
Joint practices.
I laughed out loud because at the end of the Titans game, PA, I love how much he wears his emotions on his sleeve. He said something along the lines of like, and the Vikings lose another one that's 0-5 in the KOC era, and I'm not entirely sure we'll ever see a preseason win again, or something just so like frustrated. And I feel the same, and I just have to remind myself that I felt the exact same last year, that I thought we were resting way too many guys, and then he rattles off 13 wins, and it's like, okay, I guess just trust the process. But like the amount of like third string like starter, so like maybe a slot corner or that I think could be fighting for a roster position that KOC doesn't even play in a preseason game just baffles me. And I'm really annoyed at how nicked up our team is with how much we're resting people. Like no Asamoah, no Jalen Naylor, no like anyone.
Yeah.
I think I'm afraid to say too much because I don't know who I'm going to see on the field. So if I had to go based off of how it's been going, I want to see Lewis Seen keep taking small steps. He looks far from top first round, early second round pick. But I think coming off of a broken leg and missing your entire rookie season, I think the things that he has shown is his athleticism, how fast he moves around. He's always around the ball. I think he probably got coached up on how high he was tackling, so it makes sense that you get hurdled over because you're over adjusting. He seems coachable. He seems like he's trying to take it. And I feel like we just haven't had a really good athlete at safety with decent size for a while. And so I still have a little bit of hope on Lewis Seen. I want him to keep taking steps forward. I think maybe Pace is a little overhyped, but that's just because he was an undrafted free agent. And so I want to see him still flying around the field, making plays. And then I guess I would just want to see whoever plays at O-line give the rest of the playmakers a chance to do something. I wanted to add, Tanner mentioned Nick Muse, which has been just mind-blowing to me how impressive he's looked, because I thought he looked awful.
He had a lot of drops last year. In the preseason.
Yeah, it just, he didn't do anything impressive until this offseason. So good for him. He's similar to Troy Dye. Troy Dye has been one of Tanner's least favorite players.
He's got gloves now, I guess.
In Vikings history. And
he's a football player now. He wears gloves.
And he's had a big camp that he's needed. As frustrating as the offseason's been, I think there's been a handful of guys who have had a big offseason that absolutely needed one. Troy Dye, Nick Muse. Some of those guys have taken a step forward. Jalen Rager, that they absolutely need to.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. The opposite of not caring at all about preseason would be like the Baltimore Ravens, when they rattle off like 24 in a row, and that was an intense game the other night on I think it was Monday Night Football. But I keep telling Griffin this, Goose, the Lions, whatever year they went 0-16, they won all 4 of their preseason games, so it doesn't matter. So let it be. Last year we didn't look good in preseason. We looked amazing week 1, and then we know how it went week 2 in Philadelphia. So we'll see how it plays out. If you're watching, if you got any comments for us, put them below. We'll get them on the next episode. And we'll be back again probably on a Monday here to predict, or a Sunday to predict the 53-man roster. So have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the game on Saturday, and we'll be back again next week.